All right, all right, all right. Hopefully, everybody's having a phenomenal end to the week. We're a bit second or two late here, and I think YouTube and Twitch are just joining us. Obviously, the markets have not been favoring too well this afternoon, so it's good to be able to check in with you guys. See hope everyone and see how everyone's doing throughout the latter half of this week. Appreciate everybody tuning in. This wasn't scheduled, obviously. Amit decided to take the afternoon off. At least from what I understand, he wasn't feeling too well. I listened to the latter half of his stream, and so didn't want to leave you guys without anybody to listen to or watch this evening. So with that, obviously we are here trying to do our best. Obviously, nobody can replace the Desi God, Mr. Amit Kukreja, but we could try our best to at least provide some sort of value and entertainment in this afternoon evening session. We're about 10 minutes out from the market closing. The S&P taking quite a bit of a hit. So let's just take a quick look as to what's going on with that. Let me make sure on this right-hand side, I have not only you guys, actually, this is what I'm going to do. Open up my plop top here, put that there, and then I need to put up the TV for CNBC in case anything comes on. So hopefully you guys are doing well. Market's taking a bit of a dive, as you can see from here. We were at about 610 earlier this morning on the day, and obviously we pulled back quite a bit. Don't know if I like this setup, actually. I might have to switch the TV and this, but overall, let's just see. So hopefully we get some good folks in here. Let's just go through the list. We got Jilla, we got Derek and Megan, we got Zombeister, Homestead, Ahmad, Blake, Amin, Ruda Peroni, Kirk, Jorge, Axel, Clapping Cheeks, Shempasa, we got Hot Midwest, we got Irwin, we got Michael Wilder in the building, we got BD Zach in the building, got Blake, got a bunch of good folks. We got Remy, we got On Orbit, but yes, this one stood out to me. SMCI, 2 days left. So for those of you guys that haven't been following, I sold yesterday. I got a little bit of cold feet. I'll just be blunt. We had this big dip, not big dip, but a dip. Regardless, here we were looking good. And same thing with earlier the day before. What was this, on Tuesday or Wednesday? We had this beautiful jump up to like the 65, and I was like, oh, I'm fucking rich. I'm living the dream. Sorry, just profound language, whatever. But next thing you know, we took this big stumble down, like $7-8. That didn't feel very good. And then obviously we woke up the next morning, market open. We were seeing a little bit of turmoil with that, and decided to just sell out. I think I sold in like the $56 or $57 range. So I walked away with a very handsome profit. I'm still holding my leaps as I anticipate that SMCI will continue to do well. But I don't know. The more I hold it, the more I'm like, are they going to ask for another extension? Chris had the same sort of feeling. It kind of feels like, they haven't filed already, but they did file their 8K this morning, which demonstrated that, they did close out, from what I understand, the convertible notes, which is a positive in the right direction. But who knows? It's just theta decay and everything. The options contracts that I had were expiring next week. They were not from March or anything like that. So I just didn't want to be stuck in this place where you're waiting until Monday, Tuesday, what have you. And who knows? When you're taking a profit, you never know what's going to happen, right? The whole market literally could dip like we had today. We were up about flat, slightly up, and then next thing you know, we're down 1.7%. And if you have time expirations on your contracts for today, for next week, literally it could be screwed. And not just from that particular stock perspective. You know what I mean? This is a lesson for everybody. It's like when you have options, you don't have time to wait for recovery. Sometimes you do, like sometimes you have leaps, but like for these SMCIs, like you literally have next week. And even if you have good news of, let's just say, the SMCI piece, you could still end up down, just to the fact that the macroeconomic environment changes a bit as well. Celsius, I took a gamble on this one. I had 400 shares going into yesterday, and then I had some short contracts for, was it today or next week? I forget. I think it was for next week. And closed those out for about 200% this morning. Didn't get the, I sold a little early, I'll just be honest. This move down once it halted got me a little feared out. And so I sold at like the 32 range. So missed out on about another $1 or so a piece, which ended up being, with, I think I had 20 contracts. So $1 a piece would have been about another $2,000. So I missed out about $2,000. But I still have my January 2026 leap, and I have a few other things as well. Yes. So curious what stocks you guys are looking at for the close. 255. I saw some folks freaking out a little bit about Rocket Lab pulling back. Understandable. A lot of people have a lot of money tied up into this. It's my largest position. I think, I don't know. Let me think. It's down $1.57. I have however many shares. I mean, I'm down a good bit, tens of thousands of dollars just on this position alone. Not to mention the S&P, not to mention, let's see how Palantir is doing, if that's holding up above 100. It's coming down. So lots of pullback in the market over the past 2 to 3 days. I don't necessarily hate it. I'm one of those people that are looking for the long term. I'm looking for the opportunities in the next 10 or so years out. And in terms of Palantir, I think we're richly valued here. I've gotten a lot of heat by saying that, but I would love to see this come down to a slightly more reasonable valuation. While it can compete with the likes of Salesforce, it can compete with the likes of Cisco, many other great companies that sit in the $200 to $300 billion market cap range. And while I do think it warrants it eventually, the key word there is eventually, it doesn't make sense. Making a fraction of the free cash, making a fraction of the net income that those companies do, for it to be trading in the same, and that's not to say it doesn't deserve a premium, right? Like, it might be trading at, or the fundamentals might be, the values might be for the metrics, 1/10 of what Salesforce is making or anything. So I'm not saying it needs to be 1/10 the value of Salesforce. Doesn't mean it needed to decline 90% from where it is today. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there's premiums on valuation metrics, and then there's exuberance. And I think we're more so in the latter half. Appreciate everybody being here with me. 2:57 on my time, so 3:57 Eastern. Let's see what everybody's chatting about in the chat. I'm a few minutes behind. Historically, I don't keep the chat running. What I will do is, if you have a particular stock you bought today, why is it not letting me go to my laptop screen? Okay, very good. If you have a particular stock that you bought today, let me know in the chat. Curious to see what everybody is buying. Curious to see what everyone's buying. All right. Let's take a quick look at what's going on the NBC.
I also do believe that given at some point in the not too distant future, there's going to be a CEO transition here, that maybe Warren Buffett is interested in preserving so much flexibility in terms of how the company is positioned with the cash and not making any huge additional bets in the short term, just to give maximum flexibility for the new regime. So all that's, I think, at work. It's obviously, kind of confounding. I know for a fact they love getting paid on what cash is paying right now, and all the dividends on the stocks that they hold. 20% of every dollar of dividends American Express pays goes to Berkshire Hathaway. And so I feel it's
20%.
Not so much a sell signal as it is, if you're buying today, not because stuff is cheap, but because you think the economy's over.
Yeah, it's just interesting. It's the danger of speculating, but how can you not speculate when it's Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway? Bob, the other thing that jumps out to me today, and certainly this week, is the activity in China tech. Alibaba, a PDD, JD. I mean, you could throw some other names in that basket too. Just as the conversation about investing outside the United States is really percolated.
Yeah, this is a very interesting moment to get mean reversion. And a lot of people, we had a big debate about this earlier in the week on ETF Edge. Why is Europe suddenly outperforming? Why is China, and particularly China Tech, outperforming? But even some emerging markets like Poland are outperforming at this point.
T-minus 1 minute, folks.
The
Get your
early
trades in. If you have any,
speculation has been that
you have any
this
options
push for
expiring,
global
might want to buy them back for
deregulation,
even a penny.
would make some kind of difference.
Get all that risk
We
off
also
the table.
saw Xi Jinping, the head of China, meeting with people like Jack Ma this week. That to a lot of people was a sign that perhaps he's gone too far in the other direction, is now having to court these people that he previously had shunned. So I think a little bit of hopes for better global growth on some deregulation, as well as maybe a little bit of a pivot on China. It's about time, Scott, you know as well as I do that global investing has underperformed the U.S. for 15 years now. And the mean reversion is
Obviously,
long
we're going to be
overdue.
red. Perspective, though, we did hit new closing high on the S&P this week.
Closing exactly the 50-day average. It's kind of cute. Yeah. All right. Great having you here, Mike. Thank you. And thank you to Bob as well. We'll send it in overtime for more of a wrap-up on what this week has delivered with Morgan and John. That Dow marks the
All right, we are back. Sorry about that. If I had come to you guys and said, hey, Palantir will be worth over $100 per share last month, you would have said I was absolutely crazy. If I had told you it would have spiked up to 115, 120, you would have thought I was absolutely crazy. And if I asked you literally earlier this week if we would be back down to $100 a share, you would have said I was crazy. Crazy times here looking at Palantir. I know for me, for those of you guys that picked up, I picked up some Rocket Lab yesterday at $24.30. It exhausted all my cash. That's a lie, actually, though, because I did sell for a profit some of my Celsius options. Obviously, that had a great day between yesterday and today associated with the buyout. I actually did call it on a midstream. We had this initial dip. Everybody remembers we're hanging out 25.26, so pretty much flattish on the day. Eerily flat. Then we obviously had this announcement of Alani getting bought out. I think a lot of people were excited, but also curious as to where that money was coming from. If everybody's kind of catching on, obviously, Celsius at the time of earnings was like $5.5–6 billion market cap. To hear 1.8 billion kind of coming out in terms of buyout or merger or anything of the like seems pretty extensive for a company. It's a third of the market cap, but a lot of that came with the cash. If anybody didn't know, Celsius had about $1 billion worth of cash sitting on the sidelines, waiting for something like this. I don't necessarily know if it was for particularly to do an acquisition or anything of the like, but I think for anybody that was paying attention to it, actually, might as well bring it up. For anybody that didn't have the opportunity to listen to me yesterday, there was a lot going on. There was new bank earnings. Amit was still presenting. There was a lot going on. So I'm not upset by anybody that didn't have the opportunity to listen to me yesterday. But Celsius, I've been thinking that this is going to do a turnaround for quite some time. I bought in a little too early with my 400 shares. I'll be blunt. Bought those at $30. But I've already cash secured puts at the $25 to $30 range. So luckily those have obviously come into the profit a little bit as well. But wrote some calls at the $25 strike for this. $2.50 or so. So the break even was $27.50, I think, ending next week. Obviously, we blew way past that. Didn't share it publicly, but I shared it in the members group. So shout out to everybody that took an opportunity to get that as well. Let me know if you guys had that opportunity. I saw some of you guys saying you got some, but I've been expecting this turnaround. I mean, the 3Q earnings obviously did not show up well. That's that large dip that we kind of see here. Can I see that? Share that? Yeah. This large dip you're seeing from the second quarter to the third quarter, that was expected, but I don't think the large amount of revenue decrease was expected. Obviously, it was 31% year-over-year decline. And then you had this growth, which was still below. It was anemic in terms of 4% year-over-year, but ended up doing well overall with respect to the rebound. So getting closer towards where we were throughout the first half of 2024. So now closing out with this, I was expecting this sort of rebound in the stock. The gross margin showed up well, but getting to specifically where we are in brands and everything the like. Number 1 versus number 2 brands. Number 3, Celsius. Number 4, Alani, right up behind it in terms of total sales volume and market share. Combined together, just in 2024 alone, would be close to 16%. Obviously, Alani's growing massively. Here you can see this kind of graphic, Red Bull holding a huge amount, and then you obviously have Monster decreasing slowly, going from 31% and decreasing. They own Reign, they own a few other companies as well. International sales kind of flat. But the gross margin was really what was surprising to me. I was hoping they'd get close to that 50%. They did. This 46% left a sour taste in my mouth in the third quarter. I think it left a lot of bad taste in everybody's mouth, knowing the net income margin shrunk to below 2% as well. So getting close to this 20% net income and 50% gross, I think was very good in terms of going back into hopefully a growth period. So what did that do? So they announced the Alani. This is basically the deal. So I think once people realize that they were buying it for about $1.65 billion, a lot of that being cash, and now basically being an $8.5–9 billion market cap, massively growing year over year. If you look at the growth on this, you can kind of see down here the massive revenue growth year over year below. Let me just get rid of this comment here. Massive year over year revenue growth that Alani had, the growth year over year from 2023 to 2024 that Celsius had, outpacing pretty much everybody else. So if you look at all the total category growth, over 50%, that's what they have here, came from Alani and Celsius. And so with respect to that, you're getting a large market share. You're going up to compete against Monster, which actually is having anemic growth that was offset a little bit by their Reign energy drink catching a little bit of an uptick. I think they're starting to sell sugarless. They're starting to sell more compact cans like Red Bull. They're starting to sell more fitness-like drinks like they have for Celsius. And so with that, they're trying to attract a different kind of market and extend, obviously, the bro market. I like Monster. Monster's probably my favorite. But obviously we know the fully leaded version, probably not so bueno for you. So overall, I think they're just trying to capture more of a market share associated with that. Back to just the regular old markets, man. What's going on with those? Curious to see if anybody wants to look at any particular stock, talk about any particular stock. But the S&P officially below 600, SPY at least, below 600 here after hours. Let's just see if anything. I'm going to just get back and have CNBC on the other screen, so in case anything comes up there. Let's see. What's everybody doing? How's everybody doing with respect to the stock market's pulled back a little bit to right after the market close? What are bad news? Here I am, sat hand in hand, a broken and devastated man. Jesus. I can't read through all these because I need to be more like a Mitt. Just read the ones that I want to call out because some of this stuff is pretty dire. I've been expecting this too. I agree. Yeah, 100%. But yeah, pretty fresh. It is pretty fresh, but I think it is. It's definitely something that's necessary. I think we've had the need for it to be happening for quite some time. ANF. I don't know anything about ANF. It's probably one of those crazy stocks that you're like, oh, dude, it's good to moon. It's good to moon. Abercrombie and Fitch. Yeah, they've been retracing, right? Yeah. Oh, but they're pulling back quite a bit. I haven't done any look on the retail side of this. But down 13% in the last year, up obviously. over the last 5. Good for you on that one if you bought into it. I'm personally not a purchaser of that. SMCI, people are buying into. You're worried about SMCI. What about specifically SMCI? I see my buddy. I just got back from eating lunch with my buddy. I don't want to call him out unless he wants to make himself known. But yes, I am worried about SMCI as well. That's why I took my profits, my short-term profits rather, yesterday. I was just like, you know what? It's giving me the opportunity. But yeah, stopped at the barbecue. Me and this gentleman just came back from that. Good guy. Love meeting up with him at least once a month, hopefully more. Why did the space sector crash today? Why did everything crash today, my guy? Why did everything crash today? Let's see what else is out there. People are saying portfolio is down 15%, mostly on Rocket Lab and Palantir. Just goes to show if you're investing in speculative, you have to not only be ready for the upside, you have to be ready for the pullbacks as well. Bought new call options for SMCI. You were the lunch buddy. You wish you were the lunch buddy. You wish you were in Texas. You're too busy up there in Maple Land. No, don't hate you, buddy. I don't hate you. Hey, there he is. Yep, we'll be getting lunch. What is that? Early March, my guy. Early March. Me and Roy are going to meet up and get some. I did not sell completely out of SMCI, but this is one of those things, guys. This is one of those things. One of the options contracts that I sold was up over 1,000%. So you might sit there like, Matt has no balls. Call me paper-handed, whatever. But guess who's sitting on 1,000% gain and not sitting on maybe a 708%, 800% gain because he held, you know? So, you know, and who knows? Maybe the 10K comes out this afternoon. Maybe the 10K comes out on Monday. Maybe it comes out on Tuesday. But I feel like there's always that opportunity for a buy the news or sell the news after it comes out. Buy the rumor, sell the news. In this case, who knows if it comes out and the macroeconomic environment sucks, or something happens with the Stargate project over the weekend that you weren't anticipating, or NVIDIA earnings don't come out as expected next week, and it drags SMCI with it, and you had February 28th options. So it goes to show you, man, like if you have a bird in the hand, you know, yeah, you may be able to catch that second bird, or, you know, but at the end of the day, sometimes you got to catch it. To me, there was more downside than upside. I'd already captured from $34, which is what my call contract was, to 60. What am I going to get? Wait for the other 70? What, 70 to show up? What if 70 doesn't show up? What if it's a sell the news event? So in that respect, you know, I took the majority of those opportunities off the contract. I made, I don't know how much it was, because what ended up happening was with those contracts, I walked away with a good bit of profit. I have to double check what it is. The one contract was over 1,000. The other contract was a couple hundred. But we got Tom Lee coming up. Well, we'll be definitely chatting with him or listening to him when he shows up. But it just goes to show you, man, like sometimes you got to take the profit. Now, it's another thing if like I didn't have the time constraint. Like the thing that I don't have the time constraint on, like my leaps, I'm still holding for SMCI, right? So, you know, you kind of have to kind of understand when to take the opportunity and get rid of it. It's a science, you know. Or sorry, it's not a science, kind of an art in that respect. Like you kind of have to just like live it, understand it a little bit. It's never going to make perfect sense, and it's not black or white either, you know. But it made sense for me, and I used it to buy a little bit of Bitcoin. I used it to buy, what else did I buy a little bit of today? Nubank. I bought some more Nubank today on the pullback. I bought a little early. We'll be blunt. Bought a little early on Nubank. I think I was buying. I think I bought. I don't know. It was like early 11ish because I was out to lunch. Literally, I think I bought it like 11.20ish, and then it dipped down, but recovered a little bit. Still down massively, but if you just look at the numbers from Nubank, if you had the opportunity to listen to Tanner's stream yesterday, I'm sure he walked through it in great detail. I personally like Nubank a good bit, but it's a longer term hold for me. So I bought some Leap contracts associated with that. Not all the profits, because obviously I got to pay taxes. So on some of that SMCI gains, so I'll probably move that over to a separate account. Markets being markets, agreed. Let's see. We got Miss Kelly in the chat. What's going on, Miss Kelly? We got Miss Tesla. We got Miss Junebug. Hopefully everything went well. Is it me, Matt, or is Matt talking too fast or not too much bros? I am talking a little bit. I'm a little fired up. I'm standing up, feeling it. I'm trying to get my best to mid. I'm trying to talk as fast as I can so people can't really hear me. That was pretty good, right? Cool. Yeah, I'm trying to be a mid. Hot Amit. He gets so many people following him. Now I got the pressure on. We got 500 people in here. Shout out to 500 people. Do me a favor for any of you guys, then we're gonna switch over as well to Hot Tom Lee on CNBC. If any of you guys like to watch on Twitch, do me a favor, watch over there. I'm not asking you if you don't like to watch on Twitch, that's perfectly fine. But just kindly asking if anybody likes Twitch to go ahead and do that for me, because I am trying to get monetized over there. All right, let's switch on over to CNBC to listen to Hot Tom Lee.
Stocks selling off today as investors grow more concerned about a slowing economy. The Dow and S&P 500 turning their worst session of the year so far. Joining us now is Tom Lee from Fundstrat Global Advisors. He's also a CNBC contributor. And Tom, it is great to have you on a day like today where the major averages are not only lower on the day, they're lower on the week. And the Dow, the S&P, and the NASDAQ are now also lower for the month of February so far. We teased it ahead of this conversation, the fact that you're seeing a contrarian bullish signal here. What is it?
Well, it's a couple things, but I'd say what really stands out to us is that the market has eluded extended periods of weakness because investors are bearish at the highs at a time when there's record cash on the sidelines. So to us, this is a market that is very skeptical of these new highs. That bearishness and concerns about tariffs means there's a wall of worry. So I think this is actually a very positive setup for stocks.
So you're not concerned about some of the data we've gotten? I mean, that University of Michigan consumer sentiment reading this morning in particular seems to have spooked investors, given the fact that it cited broad declines across age, income, wealth groups. You also said that big spike in year-ahead inflation expectations. That was unchanged, but the 5-year expectations moved higher too. At what point does that start to manifest into something more meaningful in terms of a slowdown here in growth?
Well, these inflation expectation surveys matter to the Fed because they're concerned about whether or not consumers are actually raising their inflation expectations, and that would in fact be bad. But we have to keep in mind the UMich surveys do seem to be polluted by political affiliation. When you break down respondents by Democratic responses, they've gone from seeing inflation under 2% before the election to over 5% today. Republican respondents have gone from 4% to basically zero. In fact, if you look at the distribution of responses for those Democratic respondents, almost 7% think inflation is currently at 25%. So I think that there is a lot of pollution in that data, and I think it's probably pretty typical what happens when there is a change in administration, but I hope the Fed is aware of that political dynamic.
So, Tom, if I recall, in Q4 last year, you were warning about market turbulence, and we've been right now at around S&P 6,000. We're at the level where we were a month ago, a month before that, a month before that in late November.
should we also expect turbulence at these levels at this point, given that the macro narrative and the political landscape is still unclear?
It certainly seems like it. I mean, I think investors can cite a lot of things top of mind why short term they're expecting the turbulence. You know, we're coming off 2 back-to-back 20% years. We know there's significant uncertainty about tariffs. In our latest client survey, 63% of our clients, and that's over almost 2,000 respondents, said tariffs or deportations is the biggest risk. That's up from 54% last month. But these are not things that have necessarily long-term negative effects. In fact, things like the number of Fed cuts is actually back towards 2. And I think there's a possibility the Fed may actually make cuts sooner. I think one thing the market is being complacent on is thinking the Fed's on hold. But if this turbulence causes hiring to slow, I actually think the Fed could actually be making cuts a lot sooner, which would be positive for stocks.
Okay, so tell me about these granny shots that you've got, you know, part of your investing strategy, some specific stocks, especially since growthy stocks seem to be especially vulnerable on days like today. And if we're going to get more volatility, it sounds like we might get more days like today.
Yeah, that's possible. But investors really want to own stocks that actually have structural advantages. And that's best evidenced by revenue growth, margin expansion, earnings growth, and reasonable prices. So the reason growth stocks will still outperform is that in a period like this, if we have macro uncertainty, they're going to be names with some visibility. It's not pleasant to own a growth stock today, but you know, we know the lesson of 2025 is that these pullbacks have not been deep and investors have been buying these dips. So I don't think today is any different. In fact, it's no different than the DeepSeek panic or the tariff day panic or the CPI panic. So, you know, I think this is going to be a buying opportunity.
You know, it's interesting because Coinbase ended up finishing the day down more than 8%, but it started the day higher after it announced that the SEC said it was going to, you know, throw out its suit against Coinbase. You've talked about Bitcoin. You've been bullish on Bitcoin in the past. Just want to get your thoughts on whether it is BTC or other cryptos right now with this new administration coming in and some of these policy changes and legal changes starting to take shape.
Well, Bitcoin overall, I think, has made a lot of progress, especially as someone looks back at where it was a year ago. And, you know, I think Coinbase might have been selling off just, you know, it's one of those sell the news events. But we know that the outlook for crypto actually is really favorable. You know, Bitcoin is still very sensitive to the number of wallets and the number of activity levels per wallet. That's set to grow if the U.S. indeed really formalizes an approach to having Bitcoin as a strategic reserve. On top of that, we have a positive cycle underway with the halving. So I think Bitcoin is still set to be one of the best performing asset classes this year.
All right. Tom Lee, thank you. Have a good weekend. After the break, home builder analyst Ivy Zellman joins us to break.
All right. Well, things are good. I like Tom Lee, man. I really do like Tom. He's one of the better contributors that I like to watch, specifically on CNBC and just in general. I think he's got a good head on his shoulders just overall. I think he's one of the most clear-headed with respect to what he contributes to the market in terms of analytics and in more short-term sort of hedges that people should be looking at. And I agree with him wholly. Like, I think that one of the things that people are maybe thinking about here is there any other catalysts that could show up to the downside from a current macroeconomic trend perspective that would impact us here on the markets? And I don't really see any, man. Like, but I do hear what he's saying with respect to deportation and why. Let's just dive into that for a second. This is my interpretation as to why I think deportation could be bad. You have a lot of lower income people that are working on construction, supply chain, transportation, that might be doing it under the table. And with respect to that, a lot of those folks unfortunately might be in the illegal alien space, and so they might be deported. So there's going to be disruption to that, which might cause short-term headwinds. But I think in the long term, obviously, with that, I think it'll be good. Obviously, when you have illegal aliens, they don't necessarily have insurance. They don't necessarily have taxes being paid in the system. Some of them do, but I hear some people, they're always like, but they're paying their taxes. It's like, well, if they're illegal, they don't have a social security card and they're not legal citizens. How are they, you know what I mean? Like if they're illegal, there are people that come in legally and, they get their actual, ability to pay taxes, everything and the like. So as we've seen with Doge and everything and the like, and, apologies for getting a little political here, but yeah, overall, I think there's more of a net drain on the system. And it could actually lower costs in the long term if you now have some of these folks specifically working, like Americans specifically working on lower income jobs. We have a key contributor to Maddie Capital TV. For those of you guys that haven't watched in the last few weeks or have heard some of his interesting takes and the reason why I got more comfortable investing in SMCI, we got Hot Ken. Ken, what is going on?
Hey, Matt, how are you?
Good, brother. How are things?
Terrible end to the week. Bloody week. And I did tell Steve, I spoke to Steve actually when I was on my way into Manhattan. I was like, I might do a face reveal at some point since, I no longer have my hands tied behind my back with work. So,
I mean, if that's the case, man,
the
you're
people
gonna have
may
to
know. The people may know what I look like.
The people might know what Hot Ken looks like, but that's the thing, man. Like once you get it out of the bag, you're gonna have to make your Instagram private. You're probably gonna have to make a lot of things private. You're gonna have to start hiding your phone number. The women are gonna be after you, man.
Hopefully, none of the women that were after me last time are in the chat, but we'll chat finance moving forward, not about women.
Yeah, how are things, brother? I'm curious because I know I sold a little bit of my SMCI. I didn't sell the long contracts, and I know Hot Chris Patel, the Desi God / time traveler, sold a little bit of his. What say you, the gentleman who is part of the brain trust that really got all this started?
I didn't sell. I only sold a little bit, and that was a week ago. I don't even regret selling that batch of shares. I regret not selling at the high though of this week on, what was it, Wednesday? Just taking a little profit off the table and reallocating money to other investments. And I think that's always healthy for people to do, right? Like, don't be so fixated on one or two stocks. Definitely continue to diversify. And I think, yesterday and today's reactions in the market, prove that, if you have, solid companies like Target, just for instance, like your consumer discretionaries, right? Like Target or, Costco, like you're not going to take as big of a beating if you're in something more speculative or something more risky. So it all depends on the risk appetite of the person as well. But my best advice would be, just definitely take some capital off the table when you have profits. You never go broke taking a profit, and definitely allocate that money elsewhere into solid things like Steve would say, into dividend reinvesting.
Hot Steve, man, he's a good guy. I need to read his dividend article for anybody that doesn't listen to Steve's dividend article. He's basically investing $100 a week into investing stocks, dividend investing stocks rather, and yielding 8 to 9%. So he's making a pretty good chunk of change off that investment. Really good series on Seeking Alpha. So be sure to check that out. Curious, do you agree with what Tom Lee said with respect to, you think it's a good time to potentially buy into some names that have taken a hit? Curious to hear.
Sorry, Steve was calling me just now, so I got muted. I couldn't hear you, but you said, do I agree, or you were asking, do I agree with what Tom Lee said to buy, and then it cut off?
To buy the dip, or are you kind of a?
I do think buy the dip. I think this goes back to the 2008 crisis, and I always point to the 2008 crisis, right, with the housing and urban development, when the market really crashed because of the mortgages. If you're buying on a 2-week basis, when you're getting your biweekly paycheck and you're just dollar cost averaging, whether it's up or down, you will never be dissatisfied or upset with the way your portfolio looks in the years to come, or the months to come, or even the weeks. And today, and yesterday and today were amazing buying opportunities, just because everything is depressed or depreciated in its value a little bit, and you're getting a flash sale discount. It could be an
Yeah.
overreaction to the news, and I think this is a buy the news event.
I think we're in a very different time. I think people always say, but what about that lost decade between 2000 and 2008? And I guess the subsequent return until you really only started breaking a profit again until 2010, 2011, if you bought the peak, right, of 2000. But I think we're such a different time. Like, internet companies weren't throwing off money like they are today. Like, you didn't have the Googles and Amazons throwing off money. They were still trying to find their footing. And you literally have these companies making $100 billion of cash flow from operations and throwing them back into dividends as well as reinvesting. And we're at a completely different time. So I'm 100% with you. Like, I take that long-term mindset. And like I said, when you may have heard me say it or not, when people were like, how could you sell SMCI in the chat? It's like, it's an art and a science, right? Like, or it's kind of like, you have to think fast and slow. There's no one way. So it's like, I'm not a person that likes to sell either. But like you stated, unfortunately, if you kind of have a time component to your options, you have to sell. Like, you can't just be like, let me wait till the last day. You never know what's going to happen. So sometimes you have to take that money off the table versus like leaps or stock. Sometimes you have that opportunity to wait around a little bit. But I agree with you. I don't think there's any big reason why somebody shouldn't potentially be buying into this market.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I think, we should just continue to hammer in and echo, it's a buying opportunity, right? Just accept it for what it is. I'm sure we're all, young enough where an event like this you can recover from, right? And this is a golden opportunity to buy just because, again, everything went down in value, call it 5-10% on some of the individual stocks that we follow. SMCI obviously got beat really bad over the course of the past 2 days. And I think some of that is maybe around fears that, the 10K is coming down to down to the wire now. But I don't have any concerns. I spoke to Steve about it, earlier today while I was on the train, and he doesn't seem concerned either. Again, the report's going to come when the report comes. We just have to hope that they actually do file on time on Tuesday. Otherwise, that delisting is going to crush.
Do you think that it's going to be a potential? Let me ask you a question. You've been pretty well right on this so far, and it seems like we've been doing well with it. The returns have obviously been phenomenal for me. I took profits Wednesday or yesterday, I forget which day. Obviously, I bought a little bit early. I bought late January. It dipped into the mid to high 20s, and then obviously since then it's been on a complete run. I guess my question is do you think this could be something that ends up being a sell the news event where the thought process of everything doing fine, and then here we are now, we get the news, it's kind of like, okay, and like,
yeah, I don't think there's going to be I don't know. I'm torn on that as well because I feel like we need to see an announcement around the new CFO, and you kind of have to hope that maybe they do end up announcing that when they report the 10K. So maybe there will be a little negative impact, like a near-term headache. But I do think long-term it recovers. And as long as their numbers or figures from their report can continue to, and even from what would it be, Q1 or Q2, now we're looking at for them in FY26, as long as those estimates or the actuals come in and you can start projecting, the future revenue for that, the 40 billion that Charles was pretty much saying, like, this is a very conservative outlook for FY26. I think a lot of investors are going to be looking for key things and key metrics in the report to verify and really drill down on those numbers.
right. And I think what you're talking about specifically, to dive deep, you and I think you were here last week when we did the SMCI 2Q call, right? And that was probably the best stream we've had here on the Mateus Denaro financial channel. The what Ken's referring to is SMCI reports on a July to June basis, and so we're now into the third quarter for SMCI, and then April to June will be the fourth quarter this year. So basically, the fiscal year ending in June, they predicted they'd probably be anywhere between $23.5 to $25 billion in revenue. And next year, so basically from July of 2025 to June of 2026, they predicted to be $40 billion in revenue, which is obviously an 80% growth of total revenue, or maybe it's closer to 60%, whatever it is, but a large amount of growth year over year. And with that, people are starting to forecast, well, what does that mean in terms of, returns and net income and things of the like. And, people are still somewhat kind of scratching their head as to whether or not they can even believe the 23.5 to 25 billion that's kind of coming out for fiscal year 25. So makes you think a little bit with that. But I don't know. I think we're in a different situation than we were. Like we've been talking regularly throughout this entire process. And, when it hit the low 30s, the high 30s and the low 40s, we were sitting there like, oh my God, can't wait till the 10K comes out and they actually get everything certified with the SEC. It's going to blow to the 60s. And now it's like, well, we were in the 60s, right? Like we're in 55, 56. And so it's like a lot of where we think the true fair value of it is kind of there. And so it's like, well, yes, there's still some opportunity, but it feels like,
we're like heavily invested in on that 10K.
Exactly.
Like, we think that's going to be the most reactionary thing, where it's just buy. And maybe, I mean, look, we're humans, right? We get things wrong all the time. I hope we're not wrong on that, because I really hope it does go to 75 or 80, which are some of our estimates on it.
Right.
Hell, I hope it blows past that because of the amount of short interest on it. So, I mean,
so do you still have a net investment in, or have you taken all your cost basis out?
I haven't taken my cost basis out. No, I took some money off the table to just to buy something out, like a few other things.
Yeah.
And
so sorry, go ahead, finish.
Like one of the investments is a highly speculative one. I haven't even looked at that ticker today, but actually that one, it's not bad.
Are you going to reveal that? Is that the one you've been talking about for?
Yeah, it's the pharmaceutical. The other one I'm not disclosing until I've presented it to all the gentlemen, and you guys look at the numbers that I'm looking at, and if we're in agreement, we're in agreement. If not, I'm still buying. But no.
So those are the only things you've been putting. You haven't been buying HIMS or anything like that.
No, HIMS. I'm short on HIMS. I don't like what happened in the market, but Nectar Therapeutics is the one that I'm long on now. Highly speculative. NKTR is the ticker. Everyone should do their own research. Look, like, I'm not saying buy it because I bought it. I liked what I read about it. And that's all. Like,
you don't want to go into the
I think if they're
DD.
Yeah, so I'll do the DD really quick, and then I have to hop off
Okay.
because I got to hang out with my friends. So,
real
quick,
a friend? No, I'm just kidding.
It's a friend. Yeah, it is a friend. I said friends just because I got nervous. So, but anyways, so Nectar Therapeutics, right? Let's focus on what matters here. Nectar Therapeutics. It's a company, right, where they partnered with Eli Lilly, and Eli Lilly controlled the study the first time around, and they ended up botching up the data analysis, right? So then they did a reanalysis of the data themselves, Nectar, and the data ended up proving to be pretty successful. Their trial is or their drug is for atopic dermatitis, which, if you remember correctly, or if people remember correctly, Dupixent is the largest drug to market, doing about 10 billion in sales annually. So it's a huge addressable market. Now, if Nectar Therapeutics can, chip away at that, assuming their phase 3 trial, which is an expanded trial, right? There's a lot more patients in it. As long as they can repeat the data that they did in the phase 1, they should have zero issues getting an approval, in my opinion. So I think this is something that could have the potential to run 300 or 400%.
Interesting. And that would put it at, let me get back to it. So it's
$3 or $4. just
$3 or
about.
$4,
Yeah.
about less than $1 billion market cap.
Yeah.
And do you think
So-
it's something that's like it's going to be a standalone, like it ends up being like a Moderna, or do you think it's going to be like a partnership royalty company that basically just sells that?
I think if they end up proving to be successful, I wouldn't. I mean, the best case scenario would be for a big pharma company to buy them, right? Because if you want to compete against Dupixent, you need someone that's pretty comparable. And I mean, the study that I saw or the data that I read, and I can point everyone to the gentleman that I read. It's a report by Adam May on X. I don't know his handle off the top of my head, but his name is Adam May. He's a medical doctor, and his report is pretty rock solid, right? So I would read that if you wanted to get any more familiar with it. And based on the data, comparing it to any other comps, like comparable drugs, their data is like, it's like, wow, like this could even go to 10 or 15, assuming best case scenario. But again, it's high risk. It's pharmaceuticals. So, and no, I'm not Asian. I'm white. I'm Italian.
It's a good-looking Italian guy. Hey, man, I have to say something very, very complimentary. You speak with such influence and
Thank you.
gravitas that
Thank you.
the stock has jumped 6% after hours.
Wow. Are people buying it right now? Because I'm talking
Because of you.
about it?
Because of you. You are literally moving the stock. You are moving $170 million stock. You have the gravitas to potentially shape the market, my friend.
That's crazy. All right. Well, everyone, it was nice joining. Matt, thank you for having me. I've got to run. I swear I wasn't pitching a stock on the channel. We'll talk next week.
We'll talk next week, brother.
All
Appreciate
right.
you. And next week, face reveal. Get all these.
Yeah, next week maybe we'll do face reveal.
Yeah.
All right.
Later,
Have
brother.
a good weekend, everyone. All right. Bye.
Man, Kenny Dollars, always a good time to get him on the channel. It's he's a smart guy, man. He is. I'll just be point blank. We tossed around the idea of SMCI, the 10K, the deadline, everything the like, and he's really the one who I don't want to say too much, but he basically gave me the confidence to actually pull the trigger on that opportunity, and now slightly richer because of it. So that one was a good one to potentially hop in on, and hopefully other folks as well were able to do okay with that. Let's just see, man. The closing bell, where did that go? Let's just see if there's anything on there over the last little bit that has come up at all. We talked about the worst day for the S&P 500 and Dow of the year. Interesting. What else are people buying, man? I saw some people talking about Enovix. We're going to have another extremely influential, high gravitas individual on the stream. I think that they were just finishing up a late lunch or early dinner, don't know, who specifically talks about HIMSS quite regularly. I believe he is the initial host of HIMSS Weekly. We'll hopefully get him on in quite some time. You guys can guess in the chat. I have some people obviously asking about, Matt, why don't you do a live stream every day? Maddie, generally speaking, is at the office at this time. It is strictly on Fridays that I work from home. Sometimes I'll take Monday from home if I'm lazy or something of the like, but and sometimes I'll work the morning from home if I have meetings with Europe early in the morning. But most of the time, Maddie's in the office at this time. So while I would love to be with you guys every afternoon, at the moment, it's just not cost efficient to do that. Obviously, while we have 500 or so people on here, 600 people or so on here, shout out to the 800 of you that clicked on X, the 578 that are now watching on YouTube. Just doesn't make financial sense for me at the moment to do that. So I appreciate the thought with respect to that. Why don't I quit and do this full time? You might blow up. Well, I don't know how much you think I make at my 9 to 5, but I do okay. And so while I love YouTube and while I love helping provide value for the people, I would not have the portfolio size that I do have without having the majority of that income coming in through the door. So right now, it just doesn't make sense for me to unfortunately leave that 9 to 5. I will put into perspective I made about, from social media and everything, maybe 2% of, not even like benefits and stuff included, maybe 2% of my just salary alone last year from, if you were to compare my 9 to 5 salary versus what I make on YouTube. So it would be leaving a lot of money on the table. I would take a 98% loss in income by switching to YouTube. Now, that could all change. That could all change, folks. But for now, that's currently where we're at. Could you sell cover calls to live off of? Oh, the guest contributor has arrived, everybody. Anybody want to give some last minute guesses as to who we have? One of the premier analyst contributors to the Matteo Dinero Maple Buck short finance channel. Anybody? Hot Topics, how are you doing, sir?
Somebody guessed J-Cal.
Who's that? Who's J-Cal?
Since when do you know J-Cal?
Who's J-Cal?
He's the guy on the All In podcast.
Oh, good for him. Yeah, he's great. No, I don't have J-Cal. I can't afford that. I don't have as much influence like you do. Maybe after this, we have 572 people. It's probably going to jump up to about 700, 800 with you on here. Feel free to stream to your own channel as well. But how are things?
Are we going to get you into hymns this week or what?
I am starting to lose my hair a little bit. You see this?
I mean the stock, not the product.
Oh, okay. Not the product. What are we down? I wanted to get your take as to what the heck happened.
Yeah.
So I'll give you the opportunity to. So obviously, I'll just preface this: absolute massive run year to date. Not even the last year. Year to date, even a more massive run of the last year, 421%, doing absolutely phenomenal. I'll just be, before you get off on your monologue, this is a stock that I personally have gotten massively wrong. I remember people asking me, where was it? I remember being in the Smoky Mountains, and I think people were asking me, I think it was in 2023, like the $6 or $7 range. It had already run from like the $4 to $6 range, and it was on kind of like a retracement. And people were like, Matt, what do you think? And I can maybe touch on why I never did at the end of it, but at the end of your monologue. But curious to hear your thoughts. Why? What exactly happened? I know you're the lead host for Hymns Weekly, and you've been spearheading that initiative for quite some time, and as the spokesperson for their investor relations team. What exactly happened?
I might as well be at this point. So yeah, for people who might not know, Hims has several product lines, and GLP-1s, injectable weight loss solutions, are one product line. The reason they're able to do that is because it's a shortage, and essentially during the shortage, to meet the demand, they allow compounders to provide semaglutide or GLP-1 solutions. What happened was the FDA this morning ruled that the shortage is essentially over, and so Hims can no longer do the compounded semaglutide solution. So Hims has a couple of different products within weight loss. They have an oral solution, like a pill, essentially, and then they have the injectable, which is the semaglutide solution, which they are no longer, according to the FDA's mandate today, allowed to compound after May 22nd, 2025. They have like a 90-day ramp off period, and then they can't do that product line anymore because the shortage situation is over. So that's why the stock fell. The thing that I've been saying is that this was a very known catalyst. It was very clear from the moment you buy Hims. If you're buying Hims and you don't know about the compounded GLP-1 solution, you're probably not buying as an investor. You're probably buying to trade, and this is just another ticker that means nothing to you. But everybody else who's buying for the long term already knows that this was going to be the case, whether the shortage ended today or whether the shortage ends, 2 months from now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now. We knew that it was going to end this year because tirzepatide had a similar decision back in December, which is another GLP-1 that was on shortage. And my point was, if you zoom out and look over the next 5 years, this won't really matter in terms of whatever revenue they might lose because it's today and it's not over the next several months. They're going to have an opportunity to address it on earnings, but the CEO already responded. And he basically said, yeah, we're going to keep doing compounded GLP-1s. And they're doing it through like a loophole, or he's arguing that they're going to do it through a loophole where they're basically going to be offering personalized exceptions, including tailored doses or formulations, basically saying that if it's for a specific patient need, then they're allowed to essentially circumvent the FDA decision to not be able to compound them anymore. That's a regulatory gray area, so we'll see how that works. But they also have another solution within the GLP-1 space that they're going to be launching very shortly. My guess was within the next week or so, they're probably going to be announcing it on earnings. If I was a betting man, which I absolutely am, they are going to be dropping liraglutide on earnings. I'll pause and see if you have questions.
So many questions, Tebi. So many questions. Are you buying today?
Yes, I bought leaps. I bought 20, 26, $65 calls. And I also did $50 cash secured puts for next week, which is over earnings. So you have been warned, basically. The implied move on earnings is plus minus 22%.
And you are, correct me if I'm wrong, you are streaming earnings next week. That's on Tuesday or Monday?
Monday after the bell.
Monday after the bell?
Yeah.
And are you streaming it with anybody? Do you want to, I'm going to plug your channel here in the chat.
Roy is going to be joining, and Manuel is likely going to be joining as well. So yeah, just HIMS, folks. I saw today new people getting into HIMS for the first time. I saw Garcia buying HIMS. Kelly bought HIMS, I think, for the first time today, which is great. Like, people are finally jumping in and buying that dip. I also added to my very significant position at this point. It's my second largest position after SoFi.
And is it your second largest position by design, or did this caught you off surprise?
A little bit of both. I added very heavily in the mid $20 range because I was writing really aggressive cash secured puts, and I got assigned on those, and then I held them all the way through, and then a lot of those got called away in the 40s, but I still have a large leaps position because for every week that I didn't get called away, I would put all of that premium money into the leaps, and now the leaps are up like 350%, something like that. So I'm very happy with that. And then I'm running a similar playbook now where I'm going to do cash secured puts at 50, and then if it falls, cash secured puts at 40, cash secured puts at 30. I don't really care because this company has a very long runway for growth. They have 11 product lines that they haven't even talked about releasing. 3 of them are going to be coming in 2025. And their last product line that they released was the oral weight loss solutions, which are not affected by this. And that was actually the product line that increased the fastest to 100 million in revenue. I think it got it there in like 7 months or something.
Well, you know, I'm all about oral because that I can't really necessarily. I'm afraid of needles, so not the needle kind of guy. So anything I can take as a pill is definitely a plus. So glad to see that those are starting to come out. Maybe I'll dabble. And I've seen a few others with the pill, but look at this trailing 12 month. I mean, graphic on the top, it's a trailing 12 month revenue. We're up to about 1.25 billion. Quarterly, up to over $400 million run rate on a quarterly basis, and up 70%, 77% year over year, which is absolutely phenomenal. So if you go back to where they were, literally, I guess, where's the fourth quarter? Yep.
I'll be right back, Matt. My food's this year.
All right, very good. So yeah, 250 million. So from 250 million to 400, very impressive. Very impressive. So yes, very good with respect to that. I definitely think that I want to get Tevis's input. One about the moat. I think V asked a really good question with respect to moat. I want to hear a little bit about that, and then I also want to hear a little bit about with respect to if Hot Tevi were to be a newcomer. He talked a little bit about obviously some folks joining in. Kelly, I just saw you. You grew. You sorry. You're in. So shout out to Hot Kelly. Shout out to Hot Garcia. Love his takes. And Garcia, man, he's a sniper. So he does a good job with respect to everything that he touches, and he's prudent about when he touches it. So he obviously sees some value in here. Hot Tevis, you may not have heard what I was kind of going to set you up for. I'm curious if I'm not in HIMS, right? I told you I messed up. I never got in. It was one of the things that we had actually bought it in the public portfolio, me and Chris. I said, you know what, public portfolio, I'm willing to give it a gamble. If you were to enter here, say you didn't have it as a large position and you were to say start from scratch again, recognizing where you're at, where the future revenue growth you think you believe is to head to, would you be buying stock or would you be buying options, or how would you start to dive into the stock or the opportunity to maximize the thought process? And I guess my question is for you: is this something where you see a kind of terminal end date for yourself in the next 1 to 2 years, it being a large position in your portfolio, or is this something that you plan on having it grow into a, let's say, $100 billion position?
Yeah. Okay. Couple things. I think if I didn't have a position, I would absolutely personally be buying here, not financial advice, obviously, and building a position in stock, probably through cash secured puts and actually getting paid to wait. I'm not blind. I understand the stock is up over 100% year to date, even with this drawdown. Is it? Yeah, 97%, close enough, even with this drawdown. So it is very overheated right now. This is why I would probably go in through cash secured puts. And then I would start building a leaps position over time. Simply for the fact that this is a company right now, just to give you a quick sort of Spark Notes version, Matt. All right. They're $11 billion in market cap, doing about 1.5 billion in revenue. And they're probably going to guide for, we'll see on Monday, but my estimates for guidance is 2.3 to 2.5 billion in 2025 revenue. They're
100% year over year.
What's that?
100% year over year, you said? You said 2.5 or 2.25?
Yeah, around 2.5. It would come out to about 60 to 70% year over year. They're growing. Their estimate right now for revenue is 90%. They're going to come in closer to about 100%. Truist actually released a note saying as much. There's credit card data that front runs a lot of the move, and the credit card data is absolutely fantastic for Q4. My estimate is about 30 million, 20 million or so above analysts' estimates. And so this business is going to do terrific this year. Of course, 2025, the guidance might be a little bit more conservative because now they know that GLP-1s are not going to be on the docket after May, or they might include it in a more conservative fashion because, there might be some headwinds there with regards to regulatory scrutiny if they're going through like a regulatory gray area. The fact of the matter remains that they are launching new product lines. Testosterone is going to launch soon, 2025. Menopause is going to launch 2025. All of their existing product lines are scaling. They're about 2 million or so members right now. My forecast is about 2.25 for Q4. So somebody asked, what's the moat on HIMS? And since there's a lot of people here that are probably not in HIMS, I just want to cover it real quick. The moat is absolutely, in my opinion, the personalization aspect, because you can mix and match a whole bunch of different product lines and have a personalized dosage, personalized form factor, have everything that's personalized for you through a subscription delivered straight to your door. And then the other thing is they recently announced an acquisition just 2 days ago, which is why the stock was up over 20% earlier this week, which allows them to have an at-home testing so that they can deliver testing kits to your home, and you can just draw blood through a Lancet, and then they can have all your biomarkers on the app. And then through your biomarkers, not only do they collect that data, so it's a very much a telehealth play because they have an AI program called MedMatch that they can then personalize based on your own biomarkers. But then you can actually have like bespoke medication for your own use case. And the reason why that's exciting is because imagine you now have medication that doesn't have side effects for you, or you have something that's personalized for your use case. You're never going to switch off of that subscription. So that is essentially the bull case in a very, very, very quick and dirty way. I think the negatives are going to be that they're going to have some short-term regulatory scrutiny. They're going against big pharma, who is obviously wanting to monopolize that entire space, and they don't want small compounders encroaching on their territory. You're seeing it here with the GLP-1 solutions. Like Hims launched a Super Bowl ad, and immediately the big pharma lobbyists and groups wrote a letter to the FDA saying that they can't be allowed to do this. They're going to try to hold them back at every step of the way. And I think that's just something that you're going to have to deal with in the short term as this company continues to disrupt the legacy players. So that's essentially what I'm seeing in Hims over the long term and why I want to hold shares.
No, that's helpful. That's interesting. So you don't think it's slowing down in any sort of way? I mean, I guess the thing that I've always kind of been confused about is, well, the thing that initially came to my mind when you said you're going to be able to take blood at home, send them the disc, etc., was like immediately Theranos, like immediately came to my head. But it's completely different, right? Because you're not just doing a pinprick of blood. I'm sure you're putting in a lot of blood for that, and they're going to be able to test it over the course of time, not within a matter of, like, let's say a couple minutes or anything like that. So completely different sort of model. But I guess my question to you is I mean, where do you see this terminally heading? Like, in terms of, like you said, that this is something you're going to be holding a long time. You do cash secured puts to be able to enable you to get into the stock and not necessarily buy leaps as a preferred method to enter. I'm just sitting here thinking, it's at 10 billion today. Is this going to be 100 billion? Is this going to be a $250 billion stock? And the reason why I ask is there's another company that sells off-brand or not necessarily off-brand, but expired patent sort of opportunities. So let's just say a particular Tylenol or Midol or something like that goes off of ibuprofen, really is the underlying. As ibuprofen comes off of patent, now you have it for anybody to make, right? It's no longer a proprietary sort of medicine, and anybody can kind of make their knockoff of it. And so I guess my question is you have other companies like similar but not the same that do this, and they're only a $20 billion company. And I'm sure there's many others out there that are comparable in terms of selling either off-brand or, you know what I'm getting at. I mean, so I guess my question is do you think this is a $100 billion company, a $20 billion company? I mean, we're already at 11 billion. Where do you see it going?
Yeah, I think that so every company that's worth their weight is going to have competitors. Like, I think that's just a known factor. It's a reality. Let me just share my screen actually, because here you have a company this is from their investor deck this year. They're launching, on average in 2024, they launched about one new product every quarter. And here's 11 new product lines, like these unfilled boxes across 4 verticals. And you have the total addressable markets there just in the US population that they haven't launched yet, right? Like, this company is focusing on the personalization aspect, on gathering more of that data. They're focusing on affordability specifically. And they're so small, man. They're 2 million subscribers. So imagine where they would be at 5 million, at 10 million subscribers. Like, the business is so much in its infancy with regards to the product roadmap scale. And then the other thing to consider is that, they have no debt. They're profitable. They're growing 90% a year. There is so much runway for growth ahead. And then you want to work backwards and say, okay, well, what is the CAGR that I want to put for this business over the next 5 years? All of those numbers look ridiculous compared to what it is trading at right now, basing entirely off of fundamentals, right?
Interesting. Interesting. So you're basically saying buy it. The runway, I don't want to say is endless, but it's got a long runway. You think it potentially has the opportunity? I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot if you're not willing to disclose. 50 billion, 100 billion market cap. I mean,
I definitely think that it can. Absolutely. Like, depending on how much time you give it, right? And if they execute, then yeah, absolutely. I think the management team has shown that they can execute so far. And this is exactly why, like, yes, it is 10 billion right now. And it was, 14 billion a week ago. But like, I think that the run that we've had is definitely very heated. I mean, it ran up over 100%. But at the same time, man, what they're doing in revenue, and when you extrapolate those numbers out in terms of the growth rates, and when you compound that with the fact that every single new product line that they're releasing, they're growing faster than the previously latest product line, then I think that you have a long runway of growth ahead. Yes, the GLP-1 aspect is not great in the short term. Like, I'm going to be the first to admit that and not sugarcoat it. If they can get around the FDA, requirements from a legal perspective, then sure, absolutely, it's going to be a revenue line that they can still retain. But I think even if you take out GLP-1 specifically and you just keep the oral weight loss solutions, and then you go across the whole gambit of their product lines, then you should be good to go in terms of the growth rate that you can feasibly expect this business to have over the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm. And it's going to be an interesting to watch, right? So what I have on the screen here is net income. On the top graphic is the trailing 12 month. What I have on the bottom graphic, or rather the middle, is the quarterly. And so, you're getting to a place now where you are in the profit, right? So that's something you don't have to no longer worry about with respect to entering the stock. And I'm thinking out loud here, right? As somebody that originally was looking at it a couple quarters back where they were still losing $50 to $100 million a quarter, on an annual basis, not on a quarter, but on an annual basis. Now we're profitable, $100 million in the last 12 months. We're at this particular quarter, $75 million in the black in net income. I guess my thought process is if you annualize that, you're able to keep up that $400 million a quarter. I mean, you're talking about 25% net margins on the quarter. If you're able to get 25 net margins on 2.5 billion, I mean, you're talking about what, $750 million in annual sort of net income. You throw a decent multiple on that, just based off the numbers that you provided, and having some leeway. I mean, you're talking about within a couple of years generating maybe $2-3 billion in net income if you're able to grow maybe into a more mature company, and throw 15-20x multiple on that. Next thing you know, you're looking pretty healthy in terms of a market cap. So I hear you. As long as the revenue continues to be there, then
Look,
I can see it.
I'll say two things. Number one is they did a Super Bowl ad. And I was pretty bullish on the Super Bowl ad because here you have a business that they have a subscriber base of 2 million folks. And the Super Bowl exposure would be like 150 million folks. They saw approximately like a 6x increase in traffic after that Super Bowl ad. So that's number one. Like, one advertisement can give them a 6x increase in traffic. Like, that's crazy to me as to how small they are in the grand scheme of things. Let me show you number two. And, I try to use these as a frame of reference for you to understand that the business itself, like, let alone put aside what the stock is doing, but the business itself is still fairly early on. Here, put up my screen. So this here is from Eli Lilly's earnings report for the Q4 report. They have two products in the weight loss space. Mounjaro alone did 11.5 billion in revenue, growing 124% year over year for Eli Lilly. And then they have Zepbound as well. So you're thinking about this competitor, quote unquote, which they're not a real competitor because Hims is only able to do this because of the FDA shortage. But Mounjaro is doing Hims' entire market cap in yearly revenue for 2024. And then you're like talking about what is the market potential? Well, like, yeah, of course, Hims is not going to be able to capture the majority of that GLP-1 market. Like, I'm not crazy. But at the same time, then you extrapolate out for all the other verticals that they're operating in, the other slide that I showed you, you could feasibly get to a result that's much, much higher than $10 billion in market cap.
So are you selling everything that you own and buying all HIMs?
No. I mean, it's my second largest position, man. I built it up from August until now. I think it's like the fastest that I've scaled up a position to my top 3. Because with SoFi and Tesla, like it took me years to build up those positions. And with this one, I was just throwing whatever money I could find at it. But it also ballooned quite a bit, so I'm not going to discount that.
There you go. Have I convinced you to buy Rocket Lab yet? And if not, why do you hate me?
I don't own Rocket Lab. I made some money on cash secured puts, but I never got assigned on them.
There you go. You heard it here first. What else are you thinking, hot heavy? I mean, the world's your oyster.
I did cash secured puts on SoFi for March 14th at $14. Got like 50 cents on those, which is great. I don't think that, well, we'll see where the market goes. And then what else did I do? The HIM sleeps, the HIM CSPs, the SoFi CSPs. Those are pretty much the only things that I did today.
Very good. Very good. Interesting. I'm trying to be like you every day. I wake up and I say, what would Tevis do?
I don't know about that, man. You had SMCI. I did not. You had Rocket Lab. I did not.
Did I convince you to get into Celsius? Well, you have Celsius too, right?
Yeah, I did. I do have Celsius. And
you have contract shares.
I bought some stupid like little lotto contracts, like the furthest out of the money that they can go, but they like doubled, and so I just flipped them today.
Oh, that's right. You did tell me you had. Do you care to disclose, or are you kind of keep on?
No, I posted about it on X. I don't really care. I bought like $145 strike price in 2026 that got IV crushed because overnight I was up 400% on those because I bought them one day before earnings. And as soon as the market opened, they got halted a couple of times, and then it settled around 30% plus for Celsius. And so I just like flipped them at 100%, and I'm fine with that.
So you bought the 145s. Let's check them out real quick. How do they perform at the market open? But it's true. I mean, this is a lesson that I actually want to have for folks on the Matty Moolah channel. Is specifically this. I mean, you just look. So it opened up overnight. Oh, I didn't even see that I had it overnight. That would have been pretty dope. But if you just look at this, obviously it was at 13 cents, and then as of this morning, when it was there,
you're not sharing anything, man.
Oh crap! There you go. Thank you. See, amateur hour over here. People ask me why I don't go live full time. That's why. I'm a damn failure. Yeah, literally flat. Yesterday did nothing. And then, boom, here you go. After hours, started sparking.
So I picked them up at like 13, and then I dropped them at like, I think 19 or 20 or something. Like whenever the market
opened.
Yeah, at the moment the market opened.
So yeah, I mean, let's take a look at the ones that I did. I'm curious now.
Which is stupid for me to go that far out of the money, but I was just like, whatever. Like I just put a very small amount of money in it.
That's why they pay the big bucks, man. I'm telling you. So shout out to the folks that I think I got a few people into this yesterday. I said, yeah, I'm gambling. Let's see what happens. So I bought these yesterday at like $250, $260 a contract. I'm not going to disclose how many I bought, but obviously they turned out pretty well this morning. So I didn't hit the peak. I wish I had waited a little bit, but I did make some moolah. I sold in this time frame right after opening. I saw it going down. I was like, is this a sell the news kind of thing? And so I didn't get the optimal, but I got some good money. I made over 200% or so on the contract. So not bad for a day. And the amount of contracts I bought wasn't insignificant, but it also wasn't life-changing. So it turned out to be
you've had a couple of great plays recently.
Trying to be like you, man.
It's in the SMCI, and
these are unlike me. Like I don't normally do the overnights. I don't normally do like the SMCIs, and and stuff. I mean, normally I'm like, you know, 20% too early. Like this is a prime example. Like normally I'm like, just buy and keep dollar cost averaging. Like I told people, you know, if you could get this in the mid 20 or the mid to low 20s, buy it. And I've just been telling people buy and hold, buy and hold, buy and hold. And obviously they've been hemorrhaging cash because it's down to the 15s. But this is literally not even a month old. But I think when this thing does turn around, this ship does right. Man, I think it's going to be a really good opportunity because right now it's at a $37 billion market cap. And this thing's going to print money, man. I don't think people realize that within the next 6 to 12 months, the net income and the revenue, maybe not net income, but the EBITDA, the actual ops cash, right? There's a lot of depreciation associated with these big facilities that makes the net income not show up. But if you look at the actual cash flow in versus out, that comes from what this company will generate just in the 2 facilities that they have, not to mention the next 3 facilities they're going to bring on. It's going to be insane. So you can see I have a little bit of, this is where I'm dollar cost averaging my little, couple bucks every other week. But I have a larger position in my individual brokerage account.
This is also something that Chris Patel is in, I think.
Yeah, Chris. So the story about this one, we had an emergency meeting on Cash Flow Chronicles about this one.
Right.
It was like a 3-hour episode. We did really well with that one. A lot of people DM'd us and thanked us because they were kind of like, "What the hell is this company?" And really, what we just talked about was specifically why this company is different than some of the other ones. So I like this one a lot. I keep telling people double buy into it. And there's still hair on it, right? Like it's still technically, if you look at where it is today compared to where it's probably going to be, I'd say it's fair value. It's a slightly overvalued at this price at 16 $16. But if you're looking 10 years down the road, it's a stupid buy. Like it's, and it's not going to be, we're not trying to find the next Hims or something like that, but it's an easy 3 to 4x. And especially if they start doing share buybacks, which I think they will, in say the next 5 years or so. This is going to be one of those ones that just pays a good dividend. It's a good place to store capital, very low risk. People are always going to need it. So, it's not like it's hey, they're going to dry up. It's like everyone needs natural gas. Everyone's going to be looking for natural gas. So in my opinion, I think it's a very low risk play, especially at this price. And it looks bad right now because there's no earnings out about it yet. The only thing that's out about it is the S1, and it's been kept very secret, like very quiet in terms of the amount of news they disclose, and like there hasn't been much with respect to the amount of funding rounds and stuff that they've gone through. So, in my opinion, I think with that, there's not a lot of information on it. But I'm looking forward to the next 2 years on this one. I think it'll turn around and be a great play for folks. But I think it's going to be hard for people because so many people are so used to over the last 6 months to a year buying into a company and 6 weeks later it's up 100%. And so, I think it's going to be very hard for people to be like, and I don't think a lot of people were with me before when Rocket Lab was trading at $3 or $4. Like I think a lot of people just bought in when it was 8 or 9, or they bought in when it was 15, or they bought in when it was 20. And, I bought Rocket Lab from $10 to $15 back down. And like, I was just like, okay, like this is going to be something where I just add and I add and I add. And it's the same. It was kind of the same with Palantir. I didn't add as much with Palantir as much as I should have, but it was kind of like Palantir, where it's like I added day one and then I added a couple weeks later and I added a little bit more and I added a little bit more. And so this is going to be one of those ones which eventually, and unless it goes to 3 or 4x quicker than expected, like if this thing goes to like $60 or $70 a share tomorrow, which I don't expect, but if it did, I would sell it, because it's like Palantir right now. It's like you're realizing so much future gain today than what it will show up as. And just like with HIMS, like I'm sure if HIMS was like $130 a share, you'd be selling.
I mean, I've already trimmed quite a bit of my position. And like now I'm getting back into being as aggressive as I was before, but I totally get it. So how big, and I got to go in a second, but how big do you want to grow this as a percentage of your portfolio?
I mean, as a percentage of the portfolio, I haven't really got to there yet. I'm just adding on whenever I get some money here and there. It's hard to say because Rocket Lab and Palantir are such large positions comparatively to like this, but I mean, I'd want to get it to at least in terms of the individual brokerage account, 3 to 4, maybe 5% before it blows up. So the hope is that, and that's kind of what I was hoping with Rocket Lab, get it to a couple percentage points, but that blew up way faster than I was expecting. And now, obviously, it's the largest position in the portfolio. So, yeah, my thought process is to do something comparable with this, get it to 3-4%, and then just let it coast. And then same thing with next decade. Next decade's about as much as I would want to put into it. Maybe I'd put a little bit more in if it dipped a little bit more. But I also have that on monthly buys. You can see I have a very small position of next decade in Robinhood as well. Yeah, a pretty small position. So it's maybe probably like a tenth, maybe a little bit less of my entire position here. But I just add, every time I get paid. And then, same thing with my Bitcoin on here. Like, I don't have a lot of money on my Robinhood. It's literally just the app. It's the easiest one to scroll through tickers, as you know. So I literally just use it for that. Like, this is the same thing with my Bitcoin. Like, I just throw $100 every couple weeks, right? So it's not like I have all my Bitcoin on here. I have a lot more elsewhere, but this is just what I use it for. Like, I just use it for my monthly buys, and over time it just accumulates. And I don't think a lot of people do it that way. I think they'll put in $1,000 and they'll be like, I'm going to turn this 1,000 into $1 million, and I don't operate that way. I operate every time I get a paycheck. Right now, for my monthly buys on Bitcoin, right now, it's about 2% of my annual salary. So my thought process is like, if every month you're just throwing 2% of your salary, eventually you'll get to a place where you have a very decent amount of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin will obviously 10x over the next 5 to 10 years, in my opinion. So that's kind of my my thought process. So even though you're only saving 2%, eventually it's actually going to be 20 to 30% maybe of your of an annual salary, which, if you think about it, that's pretty badass. That'll allow you to leverage against other things, buy houses, whatever you want.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I think it's interesting because I stopped buying. I think I bought Bitcoin for the last time in the summer, like July, August, or whatever. Like before the run up. I remember I was actually, since she's in the chat, I was telling Kelly to buy Bitcoin and she didn't, and it was like 30K. And ever since I sort of sold off my dividend portfolio to do the wheel portfolio, all the extra money that I'm putting into my account, I'm just using it to trade like options, to sell options on. So like, I'm not really adding quite a bit to my existing positions to just DCA into them. I'm just using that money to just do cash secured puts and the cash secured puts and covered calls and all that. So it's I feel a little bit detached from the just buy and hold and DCA, which is what I've been doing like almost exclusively until the fall.
They like the close up, Tevis.
I gotta go though.
But serious question though. I don't know if you're willing to disclose this. Where are we going?
Like in life or in the market? This was the worst day in 2025, everybody. So you survived it. Congratulations. Enjoy your weekends.
I'm sure it'll be much better from here on out. Maybe we have another day like this in 2025. But no, I meant like, are you willing to disclose vacation mode? Where are we going?
Oh, wherever you want, man. Like, get your stuff done.
So it's always like, this is how it goes. It's always like Matt brings up some exotic, like, oh, what about like Four Seasons Bahamas? And Tevis is like, why don't we just go back to Mexico? Like, why are you trying to be complicated?
Yeah, like don't reinvent the wheel, man. Mexico is where it's at.
That place we went last time was pretty cool, eh? Like, I'd never been off of, well, I guess the last time we went to Riviera Maya, that was awesome. Yep. What was this, or not the last time, the second to last time we went to Riviera Maya. Where was the last time? What is that called? Playa Mujeres.
Yeah.
That was awesome. What next, man? Do we do Cabo this time?
Yeah, I'm down for whatever.
Cabo's different. Cabo's different.
We'll get some a group of people going, and then it'll be fun. Last time we had 5. I think that's a good bunch.
5's a good bunch. 5's a good bunch. All right, my man. Well, I appreciate you hopping on. You're the man, myth, and legend.
Thanks, everybody.
Shout out to the Canadians winning the World Cup last night.
Yeah, I mean, they still haven't won any Super Bowls, so
hey, man, maybe next year.
All right,
maybe next year. You're the man. All right, everybody. I don't do as well as Tevis, but I appreciate the 441 of you entertaining me and humoring me as trying to do as good as I can. Obviously, don't do nearly as well of a job as, say, our friend Amit, but I try my best. And at the end of the day, it's been a lot of fun. That yes, we got some folks that actually want to come as well. All more than welcome to come with us to wherever we want to go. What was I going to do? Oh, one last chance to 2 things. Follow me on Twitch if you haven't already. I would appreciate it. If you have an account, even if you don't watch, just sign in to be a follower. I'm just trying to get those up as well. Appreciate Kelly giving me the nice kudos with respect to the live. I also would want to ask you guys, if you haven't already, to follow our dear friend Tevis. He has 15,000 followers as well on his channel, and he's a good friend of the channel. I vacationed with Tevis, so it's not like we're just guys that talk about finance. He's a good friend, and definitely consider him a good friend as I've gotten to know him more. So I appreciate you guys. Appreciate the folks coming over here on Twitch. That means a lot. As I stated, you don't have to watch on Twitch, but if it's a spot that you like, I'd appreciate that. Vacation. It's actually me and Tevis cuddling in bed, although he doesn't want to admit it. What else is there, man? I appreciate everybody. I personally am buying this dip. I think that this is something that you guys can consider as a short term. Personally, do I see further catalysts? There might be. There's potentially for an additional pullback for sure. I could definitely see that. Actually, I'm going to throw $100 at Bitcoin while we're sitting here, just chatting away. But yeah, I mean, to me, I just think it's prudent to just go ahead and buy here personally, not necessarily just Bitcoin, but just anything in general. I think it's a good opportunity, just to take that chance and really just continue to add to your portfolio, and do it on a bi-weekly basis, man. Every time you get paid, make sure you're siphoning off a portion of that. The last thing you want, but at the same time, like, this is a trap that I fell into. I fell into a trap where I would save so much. Now I'm making sure that that I'm doing a little bit more with respect to enjoying life and not letting things really freak me out. Granted, I'm on a much larger pay scale than I was when I first 10 years got out of college and was starting to kind of just move things along. I'm 33, entering my mid 30s at this point. So life a little bit more established, but able to put away a little bit more coin. So I could take my foot off the gas a little bit in that respect. So, but overall, it's something where you guys need to potentially just continue to invest. I recommend 15 to 20%. That's what generally people look at when it comes to investing, is 15 to 20%. If you do that over a lifetime, you'll definitely be able to retire. But of course, and I tell this to somebody, I think I was talking to Tevis or Ken, I forget which one, when they were on the show, and they were talking about Palantir, and I was like, yeah, it's great and everything. I'm like, but they started freaking out. They're like, what do I do? And I'm like, if you're freaking out over this, there's things about, asking people their opinions and stuff like that. But this gentleman was legitimately freaking out. I was like, well, how much money do you have in the S&P 500? Well, I don't have anything in the S&P 500. It's like, well, the first thing I told you, you asked me, what should I do? And I said, the first thing, what did I say you should do? You said I should just invest in the S&P 500 every month, every week that I get a paycheck, put a decent amount of the S&P 500. Okay, how much have you done? I haven't done any of that. But you talk about Palantir all the time. Yes, I talk about Palantir all the time. It would amaze you to hear that my individual brokerage account has the same amount of S&P 500 as it does Palantir. And then Palantir has grown, I think, in the portfolio 600 to 700%. So hear that, right? Like hear the fact that I have a large portion of the portfolio that is actually just index funds as well. And eventually, I hope when I think Palantir gets closer to its terminal value, that it really starts to get siphoned off and sold out over time, and just put into the S&P 500. Because at that point, it's already going to be, in my opinion, probably a couple percentage points of the S&P 500. So a normal portfolio allocation's worth of, let's say, 6 or 7% or maybe 5% of the portfolio, coupled with 2 to 3% in the S&P 500, because it's already going to be so big. And if you think about where it is, I don't know how you would calculate this, but what is the total value of the S&P 500? 49.8 trillion. So if we just take the 250 billion divided by 49.8, 250 divided by 49,800, half a percentage point. So Palantir right now is half a percentage point for the S&P 500. So there's that. I mean, if you think about it, eventually, if it goes to 500 billion or a trillion or whatever, it's going to be a couple percentage points. It's going to be 2-3 percentage points, just like we have for Google, just like we have Amazon. So, why would you double dip at that point? Just invest in the S&P 500. You own a large portion of Palantir at that point. And other companies, right? Then you mitigate the single company risk associated with it. So anyway, appreciate all of you. I started to see we started going and flatlining at 400. So appreciate those of you that have stuck around for quite some time. Average view duration about 13.5 minutes. So I appreciate you guys sticking around for that. And as always, it's always fun to be able to take an opportunity to do a little bit more on the streaming side. For those of you guys that have been in the members group, I haven't forgotten about you. This hasn't, what's the word I'm looking for? Hasn't replaced the fact that I'm going to do an options thing for the members. So if you're on YouTube, expect to see that. If you're on Patreon, expect to see that come through over the weekend. Hope you guys have a good one. I may or may not be on Palantir Weekly tonight. Depends. We'll see with respect to that. But over that, it's been awesome. It's been fun. The chat has been hysterical as always. And I may or may not stream on Twitch for games. I've thought about it. But as always, appreciate you guys following. It's always a blessing. Over the past month or so, we've grown the channel by about 1,000 subscribers. And so with that, a lot of it is the energy that I get from you guys and is feedback into you guys. And you guys have been super receptive of that and been much appreciated. Will I do the Berkshire Hathaway stream tomorrow? Maybe, but I need to catch up with a little bit of work that I've been slacking on. But maybe before I go, maybe we can call someone very important to the channel and see what they're up to. He really does hate me. He really does hate me.
Your call has been forwarded to an automated voice messaging system. 5 1.
Oh. It's the last thing I wanted anybody to hear. Okay, very good. So hope you guys enjoyed. I tried giving Steve. Yeah, he changed after XRP, man. He changed after XRP. That That is definitely the man, the myth, and the legend, Steven Fiorillo. I wanted him to hang out and chat, but of course he's too busy for us. Oh, I did get another super chat. Apologies, no lack. Appreciate you. I did see that come through. I was distracted. $4.99, much appreciated on that, my guy. We got some Euros. What games do you play? I do also play. So Steve got me into World of Warcraft again, so I hate him because he always calls me. Love Steve to death. But Steve calls me, and he's asked me to write articles. I start writing articles, and just when I start getting in my groove, right, I write a couple articles this past month in January and February. I'm like on my shit. I'm on my game, writing articles like a champion. And then like a week ago, Steve's like, after bugging me for like a month and a half, 2 months of not playing World of Warcraft, he's like, Matt, you got to start playing World of Warcraft. So I've started playing World of Warcraft again. I know, boo me in the comments. You know, it is what it is. But I also like Marvel Rivals. Marvel Rivals was a good time. What? Platinum on that? Or am I diamond? Whatever one's lower, I am. So if diamond's higher, then I'm platinum. If platinum's higher, then I'm diamond. I'm pretty sure I'm platinum. Platinum on Marvel Rivals. My teammates suck. I'm awesome as always. It's always my teammates' fault, not me. I'm a Lord Rocket because I'm the fucking man. And what else is there? I used to play a little Call of Duty. I'm not very good at it, but I haven't really played that in a while. I haven't played Black Ops. Is it Black Ops 6? No. Whatever the latest Call of Duty is. Haven't even played it. So yeah, there's that. I don't play on a system. I just play on my computer. So just the same thing that I'm looking at right here. But yeah, hopefully that works out for you guys. Let me think. Is Steve still bullish? XRP. I don't know. Cool. Well, I appreciate you all. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. The hell? Yeah, so a lot of interesting chat going on in the chat as always. Appreciate you guys hanging around. And at this point, we're just dwindling and delaying. If you want, I can do the clap. All right. And then talk for another 20 minutes to commit, but I won't do that to you guys. Appreciate you. Hopefully you guys got some entertainment out of this one. And don't forget to buy Bitcoin, and I will chat with you guys on the next stream. You guys rock. Thank you so much.